friends, here's my question. Have you ever sensed that the world that we live in is not the world that God made? I know I have. I recently heard this said in a different way. The world we live in now is not the world that God made, but the world we've made of the world that God made. Right? The world we live in is no longer the world that God made, but the world that we've made of the world that God has made. So the world is governed by different powers and principalities, and certainly not God's original plan, or even just the world living under the gospel plan. But it's a world that we have made that is, it's make-believe. It's a lie. It's a facade. It's a fantasy. And all of us have been duped by it. And there's a movie out that kind of captures this. You know, it's an iconic movie now. It's called The Matrix. Especially the first movie in the series. Neo, the main character, if you look at his name, Neo, in another language, it means new, like the new man, right? So he is portrayed in, as I read it, like the new man, like the new Adam, okay? And there's another character, Morpheus, and again, in another language, Morpheus, think morph, it means change. So he's like the change agent. He's like the prophet who's calling for change. He's like John the Baptist who points out the new man, Jesus, and who's going to bring about change and inevitable change and irreversible change, redemption of humanity. And then there's Trinity, and Trinity's the love of Neo. So kind of like the inspiration, the one who stays with Neo through thick and thin. And on it goes with this, if you will, a group of disciples that are around Neo. Now, the way that the Matrix plays it out, of course, is a purely secular telling of that ancient, ever ancient, ever new story of redemption, which ultimately finds its roots in the Christian story, right? The real story. But the way it plays out is in modern terms is that the world has been taken over by computers called the Matrix, and everyone lives in these pods, and they're all slaves to the Matrix. But the Matrix has control of their minds and projects in their minds throughout the duration of their lifespan, projection in their minds Earth as we see it right now. And so they think they're walking around on Earth. They think they're having babies. They think they're working in an office. They think that they are boyfriend and girlfriend. They think that they're making money or on vacation or eating a steak, right? But all that's a lie that's been put into their mind. But Neo has this uneasy feeling that the world that he lives in is not the real world. And that all of this is somehow under control of something bigger, okay? Well, he's presented with an opportunity to have one pillar or the other. I always kind of looked at this like we're presented throughout our life with, drinking the Kool-Aid of this world, right? Or for us as Catholic Christians, eating the Eucharist, you know. And if we really are truly believe in the Eucharist, that we're consuming Jesus, body, blood, soul, and divinity, that's what should wake us up inside. That's what should bring us back online. That should be the thing that frees us from the lies of this world, the facades, the fantasies of this world, and set us in the real world, which is this relationship with God, and the real world, food for the journey for heaven. That's precisely what Neo does, is he has that courage, that resoluteness, that this kind of ability, strength to take a risk. And he does, and when he does, he's pulled out of this fantasy world and into real life. The world around him has been destroyed, and his job with his disciples is to go set free the minds, and therefore after that the lives of everyone else that is human, so that they can go to Zion. It's interesting. They picked the name of the city under the earth as Zion, a community where everyone lives in harmony with one another. And that's, like an analog for heaven, okay? Well, I thought about a lot of this when I thought of a scripture reading from actually Sirach 48, where it relays some of the fantastic works of Elijah before he dies. And one of them is that he raises up a disciple named Elisha. And Elisha wants a double portion of his spirit before Elijah is taken up in a whirlwind into heaven. And ultimately, he does get that because Elijah has been mentoring and coaching Elisha for a long time as his student, as his disciple. And when Elijah is taken up in the whirlwind, he leaves his cloak behind. And Elisha picks that cloak up and that mantle, and he uses it to strike the water just like Elijah did, and then before that like Moses did, and the waters part. And you see that Elisha now has that gift that Elijah has passed on to him, the power of God to control the elements of this world, that God's power is greater than this world. And where all this is going is that Neo needed a group to believe in him and support him and encourage him and defend him and surround him and lead him and to tell him that he's the one, right? And Elisha needed that from Elijah. He needed to know that he was the successor to Elijah, and Elijah spent his time with Elisha, building Elisha up, preparing Elisha to go out and continue the work of God. Well, it's no different with you and I today, right? Listen, I am not telling you anything new. We are not living in the world that God made. We're living in the world that we've made of the world that God has made. And we've done that under the control of an evil power. The movie calls it the Matrix. Let's call it as it is. It's the enemy of humanity. It's the devil. And what he's projecting into our minds through our culture, through so many filters, through so many reels that we're watching over and over again, is a lie, is a fantasy, is a projection of the unreal. And yet we are eating this up like it is real, and like this is all there is, and we're going for all the gusto, all the experiences that we have, that we can have, not realizing that these experiences that we're having are the stuff that will keep us from being rescued, because God has to set our minds free from the occupation of the enemy, so we have the freedom to choose him. And then choosing him, he sets our hearts free and our lives free